Thank you for joining us for episode 30, part 2 with Greg Vogel. In this episode, we take a closer look at the story behind Arizona's water supply, a topic that impacts us but is often misunderstood. It's a thoughtful and eye-opening conversation we're excited to share with you. Enjoy.
You go back to 1980 and all the things that we've done with CAPS and SRP to really focus on how we take care of our water supply. And I think we've done a tremendous job of that. I think we've poorly done a job of narrating the actual facts of we have plenty of water.
Because that study was released the way it was released, without sharing with stakeholders first, without any vetting of the study, it became the largest round of global news. It's a real shame, and I'm beyond upset as to how it's made Arizona look.
Right.
So whether it's the LA papers or it's the New York papers, they're just looking for that next seed to pound on us. And this one is a complete and total farce.
Let's talk about the infamous narrative that Arizona does not have enough water. We were mentioning this off camera prior to. So in the 50s, and this is what we share with a lot of our clients who ask, and John, I'm going to ask for you to just give a little bit of color on this as well, is that we use the same, if not less, water than we did going back to the 1950s. Although we are 7 times the population, our economy is 15 times larger. What is happening with the water narrative? Whoever wants to go, it's up to you.
Well, I'll take the simple pathway, and Greg
Yes.
can expand. I just think there's obvious changes that have shifted in terms of population growth, lack of focus on agriculture aspects. So you're seeing the water demand for agriculture versus a larger city municipality is completely different. So that's most of the shift. But I think you go back to 1980 and all the things that we've done with CAPS and SRP. To really focus on how we take care of our water supply. And I think we've done a tremendous job of that. I think we've poorly done a job of narrating the actual facts of we have plenty of water. But of course, we want to plan for the future. I'll let Greg dip into the 100-year supply and the issues we're seeing with Queen Creek and Buckeye. But I'm certainly bullish on the future for water in Arizona. And I think there's a lot of areas we can go that are untapped in terms of supply. We talked about brackish water offline, so I'm still upset about the pejorative narrative that was sent out nationally, and we still see that happening today with investors that we talk to nationally, consulting guys from New York, Seattle, Minnesota, saying,
Canada
"Hey,
does it right."
First question is, hey, do you guys have enough water?"
Yeah. This all really started heavily, we talked about this earlier, this little enclave up in Reverde Drive where a couple thousand people live. They're not a private water utility, not in a city. They were living off of a very deep water situation to the start. They began hauling water with Scottsdale providing water. They were warned that's not going to last forever. Finally, the tap got shut off. That became the first global news that we were out of water because of this little enclave that already knew they did not have a water supply. That was the first. Second became the series of water studies that the Department of Water Resources was underway related to the Hassayampa Basin, and then secondarily, the overall Phoenix Active Management Area, which includes all of our major cities and all the way out to the White Tanks. Our previous governor did not release that study, but the murmurings were, it doesn't show great news. But that's all we could hear.
Okay.
Governor Hobbs' first day, she got a hold of that study, held it up at the podium, and threw it out to the world. And that study showed that the Phoenix AMA was 4% short on water to demonstrate a 100-year supply. 4% short. Now, I'm the optimist and say the glass is overflowing. It was 96% full. And because that study was released the way it was released, without sharing with stakeholders first, without any vetting of the study, it became the largest round of global news. All the while, we're getting great traction for TSMC and others more informed.
Intel, et cetera.
Okay,
Yeah.
So that became the first part of the narrative. Then it became the idea of the councils that was created, both rural and urban, and the makeup of those council members was driven partly by politics, not terribly informed. The recommendations that came out of that, and then the 100 bills that were submitted year before last, and nearly will be another 100 this year to address these so-called problems. But nobody addressing the elephant in the room, that the study was just plain bad.
Right.
Plain bad because they were using bloated demand that we used to use for water, 170 gallons per capita per day. Actual usage is 30% less than that. So just take that to start.
Sure.
30% less. That was not programmed in. They program it as if all the water we need for the next 100 years on all of the analysis and all the current use, the projections, is all being pumped as of 2022, all at once at the same time. I think we all realize we're going to grow over 100 years in a somewhat linear fashion, but they use it all at once. Oh, let me think about recharge. When you flush a toilet today, we have a huge amount of that water that is treated and then put back in our groundwater table. The department refused to use any newly created, by law that had to be created, recharge facilities. Oh, by the way, that's another
that study?
That's another 30
Wow.
plus percent. Between just the actual usage and the recharge, there's a 60% differential there. And to speak to our shift from agriculture, 72% of our water is still used for agricultural here in our state. In our region here, meaning Phoenix Metro, Phoenix AMA, it's still about 30-some% and declining. That usage will be going away and will be replaced. They're not, and you mentioned brackish water, we're not talking about all the things that can be done. But why aren't they be done? You asked me that just earlier.
Did, yeah.
Because it's cheaper to use the current sources of quality water that are available in relatively plentiful supplies.
I was just going to
say, why do you go spend 1.25x or 1.5x when you have the supply? We need to prepare for desal, not the ocean. How about, that's 30,000 TDS, total dissolved solvents. Brackish water here in our region in plentiful supply is in the 3,000 range. That can be treated, and it would not be a wild cost to do that. Then we have Harquahela Valley, which is 65 miles west of here. There's enough water in that valley, a basin of water, to basically bring water for 300,000 houses, okay, for 100 years.
Wow.
Well, guess what? That water's coming in. Those 300,000 houses are then flushing a toilet. And we're looking at now a recharge of 40+% of that. So it's actually new. We're still supplying those with that outside source, and then that is being recirculated. Then there's Butler Valley, right? Then there's McMullen Valley. These are all within reach, all proximate to the CAP canal, and it is enough water to solve it. Lastly, I'll just point to Buckeye, how unfairly tarred and feathered they were related to a city that is drowning in water. The lower part of Buckeye is the Buckeye Irrigation District. There's 12 wells pumping 24 hours a day to get water out of the ground into the river because it's waterlogged. The average depth of water in all of central Buckeye is 70 feet, yet these residents have been charged groundwater replenishment district tax to recharge on top of a 70-foot groundwater table. You would never do it, so they're paying for others to recharge elsewhere. So this whole thing is a horrible political mess. It's been treated in a way that was so amateurish. It's a real shame, and I'm beyond upset as to how it's made Arizona look. And they're all after us, by the way, because we're so damn successful.
Right.
So whether it's the LA papers or it's the New York papers, they're just looking for that next seed to pound on us. And this one is a complete and total farce. Lastly, I would say, yes, let's spend the next $50 billion over the next 100 years for that treatment, for that importation. And across an economy like we have, spread out over 100 years, if you're spending $500 million a year, it's a nothing burger related to the effects on our economy. We are fine. If you're up in Carefree or Cave Creek and you've got a well and the water is starting to disappear, you may have a problem, you may not have a solution. But for most of us, especially in this region, we're fine.
Should we just start the narrative now, Governor Vogel, moving forward?
Yeah, please.
We'll start his campaign process.
I don't want him to walk
What do you think, JC?
We could start with Karen Robeson.
Yes.
She's fantastic. She's fantastic.
There we go.
So we mentioned, of course, how many of our clients, consulting clients, long-term clients, even ones that have properties here locally, it's still the same question. How do you help them navigate?
Well, I think it really boils down to, at least for Phoenix Metro, it's as Greg mentioned, it's Buckeye and Queen Creek. So, BTR is still an exception for this study and kind of the pounding of the chest by the governor and her team. So I think clarity will matter a lot. Elections matter a lot. So I think, does this get resolved before 2026? I don't think so. I mean,
They're stretching. They really would like to. And on behalf of our current administration, they stepped into something they had no idea what they were creating by the release of that study. It shouldn't have been done. And now our director is really behaving in a way. This thing called unmet demand is this thing, and it's made up. It's not legislated. It's not a rule. It's not a policy. It's not a guideline. Unmet demand, meaning that if a well goes dry in an entire region over this 100-year period, no one gets water in the undesignated areas. And now we've submitted the study that shows there is no unmet demand, but they're still standing on the fact that this unmet demand. And now our director is kind of saying on TV that what he's here to do is protect the existing residents from these developers who are trying to steal the water from beneath them.
Sure.
And again, the narrative's getting worse, not better.
Just horrible.
Yes.
Just horrible. Greg,
and on a positive note.
Yes, we are. We're going to talk about what we're grateful for, of course, between the three of us. I know I can speak for John, and I'm sure he'll mention this as well, but just so informative. Thank you for everything, just the education. I always learn something. So I learned more than just one thing today. John, do you want to start us off, or should we have Mr. Vogel just jump right in as far as what you're grateful for today? Guest first, as always.
Look, I'm so grateful to be here in this vibrant economy. Phoenix has been just completely unbelievable. No matter what's happening in America, grateful to be here in America. We'll get through these waves, tariffs and otherwise. And lastly, just grateful to be married to my best friend.
Oh, even better. Even better. What do you have there, JC?
I'll stick with Arizona today. I think we are on the precipice of really having a standout state, not only nationally but globally. And I appreciate and I'm grateful for guys like Greg that truly care about this state. I think we recognize that it's given us so much. You would be included in that conversation.
Absolutely.
That I would give my shirt off my back for the state of Arizona, and it's my roots. Yes, I was born and raised in Minnesota, but this is my home, and I think Arizona has such a special feel for me in place that I love people moving here. I love people getting to experience Arizona. I love every time I talk to someone from New York or Seattle and like, oh, you can ski in Arizona? I go, yeah. It's 2.5 hours north.
And golf on the same day.
And golf on the same day.
All day, every day. You're the man from Minnesota still wearing a parka when it's 82 degrees out here. That's how much you've acclimated to
Scarf
Arizona.
weather is 70 degrees.
You are full-blown Arizona. No doubt in my mind. I'm going to say, we talked about this as we were walking over to our studio. I mentioned to you, I had the most unbelievable experience with your associate Kirk down in Casa Grande, right? We were down there with a couple clients, Jake Taylor and I, one of our managing directors, and Jake has a relationship with him, invited us into your office, and we sat in it was almost like it was the war room, and he had up your website, just going through all these different parcels throughout Casa Grande, and just floored at the amount of information, just the power behind that as well. So you made us look good to our client, by the way. So
thank you.
Very, very grateful, and such a pleasure to get to meet you in person as well.
Well, appreciate you having me.
Any additional closing items? Feeling good?
I think we went long purposely.
This was good stuff, though. This was good stuff. Again, another big thank you to Greg Vogel, founder and CEO of Land Advisors. Thank you for joining us. Multifamily Forward, presented by Mark Taylor Consulting.